All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down two tools that have been the backbone of trade for, well, centuries: the bill of exchange and the promissory note. Now, I know they sound a little old school, but trust me, the problem they solve is as relevant today as it's ever been.
So let's just jump right into the core of it, right? Picture this. You're trying to run a business. You've got a product, you found a customer who wants it, but there's a catch. They can't pay you right this second. They need some time. And just like that, you've got this gap, this classic, tricky situation that businesses face every single day. And that right there, that's the fundamental problem of credit. You want to make the sale. Of course you do. But you also need some kind of solid guarantee that you're actually going to get paid. A handshake and a "don't worry, I'm good for it" just doesn't cut it in business. You need a way to turn that promise into something real, something you can count on, something legally solid.
So how did people solve this? Well, over time, commerce came up with two really ingenious tools to bridge this very gap. And those are the stars of our show today: the bill of exchange and the promissory note.
Okay, first up is the bill of exchange. The easiest way to think about this one is as a formal order. The seller, let's call them the drawer, literally writes an order to the buyer, the drawee, telling them to pay up. Now, that payment might go straight back to the seller, or it could be directed to someone else entirely, a payee. But here's the key: none of this means anything until the buyer formally accepts it, usually by putting their signature on it.
All right, now let's look at the promissory note. This is different. Instead of an order coming from the seller, a promissory note is a direct promise coming from the buyer. The buyer, who we call the maker in this case, is the one who writes it up, promising to pay the seller, the payee. See the difference? It's much simpler, just a two-way street between the person who owes and the person who's getting paid.
So let's just nail this down. Bill of exchange, it's an order. It comes from the creditor, and it can have three people involved. A promissory note, that's a promise. It's made by the debtor, and it's just two people. And that one little difference, order versus promise, changes everything about who writes it and how it works.
Okay, so we've met the main characters. Now let's see how this all plays out in the real world. We're going to follow the journey of a bill of exchange from start to finish to really get a feel for it.
You can think of a bill's life as having three main stages. First, there's the creation and acceptance. That's the opening act. Then you get to the really interesting part, where the person holding the bill has some big decisions to make. And finally, you have the grand finale, the maturity date, when it's time to get paid.
And this is where things get really cool, because once a bill is accepted, it's not just a piece of paper anymore. It's a genuine financial asset. It has real value, and the person holding it suddenly has three different, powerful options for what to do next, even before the due date.
First option, the simple one. Just hold on to it. You can stick the bill in a drawer and wait for the due date. When the day comes, you present it and collect your cash. Easy peasy, as long as you don't need the money right away.
Okay, option two is pretty clever. Let's say you owe money to somebody else. Well, you can endorse this bill, basically sign it over to them. You're giving them the right to collect the money later. It's like a formal transferable IOU that you can use to pay off your own debts. This is what makes it a true tool of credit that can move from person to person.
And then there's option three, for when you just can't wait and you need cash like yesterday. You can take the bill to a bank and discount it. What does that mean? The bank basically buys it from you on the spot. They'll give you the cash right now, minus a small fee for their trouble. Then, the bank is the one who waits to collect the full amount later. This is a massive deal for businesses that need to keep cash flowing.
But, things don't always go according to plan. What happens when that due date finally rolls around and the buyer doesn't pay? What if they can't? Or maybe they just won't? Well, that's when a bill is dishonored. And let me tell you, a whole different set of gears starts turning.
Yeah, the official term is dishonor. It's a formal way of saying the deal is broken. And when that happens, it kicks off a chain reaction of legal and accounting steps for everybody who's touched that bill.
Now, to make it legally official that the bill has been dishonored, you can't just say, "Hey, they didn't pay me." You have to prove it. So the person holding the bill takes it to a special official called a notary public. The notary's job is to go and formally demand the payment. If it gets refused, they officially record that fact. It's all about making it legally airtight.
And for doing this, the notary charges a small fee. It's called noting charges. It's not usually a huge amount of money, but it's a crucial part of the legal process. And guess what? That little fee gets tacked onto the bill, so the person who didn't pay in the first place now owes even more.
But wait, it might not be the end of the road.
Sometimes the buyer will ask to renew the bill. This is basically asking for a do-over. The old bill gets torn up and a brand new one is drawn up with a new later due date. But of course, this favor isn't free. You can bet that interest charges for that extra time are going to be added to the new bill.
So there you have it, the entire life cycle of a bill, from birth to, well, sometimes dishonor and rebirth. Now let's do a final showdown. Let's put the bill of exchange and the promissory note right next to each other to really hammer home what makes them different.
Okay, look at this. It really all boils down to a few key things. Nature: a bill is an order. A note is a promise. Acceptance: a bill absolutely needs it. A note doesn't. And here's a big one: liability. With a bill, the person who created it is only on the hook if the buyer fails to pay. But with a promissory note, the person who wrote it is on the hook, first and foremost, no matter what.
You know, when you step back, even with all these differences, both of these pieces of paper do the same magic trick. They take a promise about money in the future and turn it into a solid, valuable thing you can hold in your hand today, an asset you can keep, you can trade, or you can turn into cold, hard cash.
And that leaves us with a really interesting final thought. I mean, think about it. Bills of exchange and promissory notes were basically the original fintech. They were brilliant solutions to the age-old problems of credit and cash flow. So it makes you wonder, what's doing that job today? We've got lines of credit, digital payments, complex supply chain financing. The names and the technology have changed for sure, but that fundamental need to bridge the gap between a sale and a payment, that's as real as it ever was.